So, as 2018 comes to a close, ladies and gentlemen, I thought it'd be actually a cool thing to do something very different to close off the year. Welcome to the Game Changer. I am indeed Nate the Effing Great, who is still laughing his butt off because the fact is, Asuka chopping the Miz in the chest is one of the funniest things I've seen all week. I'm being joined here by a very special guest. He is one of the guest hosts for tonight. He is, I guess you could call him, maybe I am dubbing him a leader of the newly formed Zach Pack. He is indeed Mr. Zach McCracken. How's it going, good sir? And welcome to the show.
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me, man. How's it going?
Oh, man. This week, another Raw I missed, and I kind of regret missing SmackDown, but for the most part, it still seems like it's a pretty good week of wrestling. I've listened to a lot of other people's podcasts, guys. Check out them all at Wrestle Addict Radio. Yeah, but there's a lot to discuss going into this week. We're on the final run before TLC that's coming up, not this Sunday, but next Sunday, you guys, on the WWE Network. So we'll get into that in just a bit. But first, I think it's only fair that we talk a little bit about my special guest co-host here, because some people may not know him. So first things first, Zach, let me ask you, what got you interested in professional wrestling, and what's kept you invested in professional wrestling now?
Alright, so I started watching wrestling back in 2007. My dad was watching SmackDown, and I saw Batista and The Undertaker. Never heard of those two guys, and I'm like, oh, that seems pretty interesting. And ever since then, I've just been fascinated by professional wrestling as a whole. You know, it's an art form, and it's really fun to watch, and I've always just enjoyed it. And I've stuck to the WWE just because, starting from 2007, it didn't start getting that bad until 2012, 13. So it's like, I'm not going to stop after watching for so long at that point.
Yeah, it's kind of reached that point for me too. I've watched since 2004, and I think I'm at the point right now where it's just like, I don't want to stop watching, because I still watch like some of the highlights and stuff like that, but I won't really subject myself to a bad show. I mean, 2 weeks ago when they had Raw in Milwaukee is one of those few times where it's like, oh god, I'm so glad that I did not go to that show. Because about...
Oh yeah, that was the second lowest rated Raw in history, I believe.
Oh my gosh. 2/3 into that
it's poor Milwaukee. we have such a good fan base in Wisconsin, too.
No kidding. Honestly, it's one of those things where there's such a rich history in Milwaukee. You can think of so many great moments that happened in Milwaukee, and for it to culminate with the show like that, where literally I just remember watching Seth Rollins come out and he says, hey, I'm ready for my open challenge for the IC title, and people are just saying, who's it going to be? So many speculations. I'm like, gosh, please just give us something new, something new. I'm here to show the world, damn it. Click.
Oh yeah. Seth Rollins is the face of Monday Night Raw, and he has been, and nobody's saying it, and the people aren't noticing it. I mean, he's main eventing shows now. I mean, he's the placeholder for Roman at the moment, and I miss Roman just as much as the next guy. But it's so clear that once Roman left, Vince lost his marbles and didn't know what to do at all. No,
it's very, very true. Honestly, it's just absolutely insane that you have such great potential guys who can definitely be, guys who can take the ball and roll with it, but Vince is not giving them that chance. He instead would rely more on people who bring out the nostalgia, mainly, i.e. Brock Lesnar. Brock has had a good run from, I think it was from like 2012 all the way till about, I want to say 14, maybe 15, but after that it was
just a good run until he broke the streak.
I don't know. I think that the streak...
No, I'm sorry. He had a good run until WrestleMania 31 against Roman Reigns, when he dubbed Suplex City. And ever since then, I have not liked Lesnar. He just, as I said, he goes in, he does a few German suplexes, and he only works with guys that, like, he respects. Like his match with Daniel Bryan at Survivor Series, that was a fantastic match. You know what I mean? Yeah, Daniel's playing the heel, but that's another stupid decision right there. Turning Daniel Bryan heel. Okay? He's working with it. He's working with it because he's Daniel frickin' Bryan.
I think that it's just taken a sour turn because, and this will probably be a perfect transition going into talking a bit about SmackDown, because Raw, honestly, there's probably only a couple of highlights we could mention on that, but Daniel Bryan had a promo on Miz TV where basically Miz used that as the opportunity to basically say, hey, admit the fact that, I was right, that you basically had to cheat, you basically had to, go into your dark side to basically get to the success that you're at right now, and you have to admit it, either yes or no. Daniel Bryan basically does the whole yes, no deal, but he also talks about how he's
Fickle.
like, yeah, oh gosh, that catchphrase, please do not. If that goes on a
he
t-shirt.
talks about the earth and how we're all harming it. And it was a very good heel promo. It was a very, very good heel promo.
I just think,
especially for Daniel Bryan's character, in my opinion.
I just think that it's still one of those things where it's one of those things we don't need to hear that, because we hear that from so many other people that, like, oh, hey, we're destroying the earth because we're using plastic bottles, because we're doing this to animals, and blah, blah. It's like, we know this
it's
stuff
not like we
already.
haven't heard it enough.
I know, and it's just one of those things where it makes Daniel Bryan sound more bitter than he actually should be. I mean, he's the WWE champion. What more does he have to be bitter about? But I think what kind of hit it home for me was the fact that he said, I make one deal. I hit somebody in the groin one time on one night, and I'm apparently the bad guy compared to all the stuff that you guys did every day. So I at least give him respect for that. It was just the way he went about it that I did not like.
Oh, yeah. He just continued to add on to it. I figured if he would have ended it like there, that would have been perfect. But here's what I think is going to happen. Here's what I want to happen, at least.
All right.
So now we have Daniel Bryan as the heel, and then he was on Miz TV, and we could do something with this. We could have Miz use this, being like, I told everybody this, that Daniel Bryan wasn't the guy he said he is, and then turn Miz into a face off of that, because they're talking about that. And as I said, if they want to make it actually work, turn him face against a heel Daniel Bryan. We haven't seen that.
We actually have not seen that. You know, you're right. It's always been Miz is the heel.
I mean, they were both in the WWE at the same time when Daniel was heel and Miz was face, but Raw and SmackDown and all that jazz.
Yeah, it's kind of like an interesting contrast to what probably was what, you know, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels was. There was a time where, you know, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, you know, Shawn was the face, Bret was the heel, and then there was the vice versa deal. But it always made it very special, and it always kept people interested, because the fact was that, hey, two really good guys, but they're just switching roles here. We're getting, I think it started off with maybe Shawn as the heel and Bret as the face, and then by the time...
So basically how that one worked, it was like in the States, Bret was the heel, and in Canada, Shawn was always the face. I mean, the heel. It was always switching back and forth with the whole Canada-American thing, but they still made it work, and that's insane. I mean, nobody can do what those two did back then nowadays, in my opinion. Like, everything, it was all about Canada being better and all that stuff, and they just had fantastic matches.
Oh, definitely. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why I still say that Shawn Michaels will be one of my all-time favorites, because of the fact that he can work so well with just about anybody.
He is my all-time favorite, and I feel like it sucks, you know. He had the perfect retirement match against The Undertaker, but I feel like a one-on-one match at this point, after everything that's happened since then, would be good. A good one-on-one match for him, just to right the wrongs of his past.
Maybe. That would be kind of an interesting deal. I think that Shawn Michaels would benefit more taking on a younger talent. I think we've seen Shawn Michaels and Undertaker so many times at WrestleMania.
Oh, I don't want to see Taker and Shawn. I want to see AJ and Shawn.
Oh my gosh, that just...
Or Seth and Shawn. It's something that should happen.
It certainly is something that should happen. Even some people could even make the argument, hey, why not throw, you know, Daniel Bryan and Shawn? Because there is still unfinished business between the two of them anyway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and now they kind of blew it with Daniel being heel, but yeah.
Well, I mean, you could still have Shawn as, like, the baby face, so it's not necessarily a blown-up deal, but it's still one of the things where, hey, Daniel Bryan is very bitter. He could still be talking about how bitter he is against Shawn for costing him the title back then, so...
Yeah.
It could work in that way. But also, SmackDown featured... great matchup between Miz and AJ Styles, in which Daniel Bryan, of course, does his deal where he attacks AJ, and of course he ends it by just saying fickle. I'm like, oh gosh, please, I'm already over this. I'm already over. I was okay with yes, no, because at least it was simple. It was actually one of those things where it could get the crowd behind. But now we're at the point where he's saying some random word, and it's like, this is not going to be a chant. I don't care what anybody says.
I honestly think that the WWE could have ruined Daniel Bryan, because it already seems like a gimmick that is annoying, and that's the last thing we need is another annoying, persona in the WWE. We have too many of those. I mean, look at No Way Jose. You know, he's never used on Raw, and when he is, it's useless. It's like, come on. They have so many talent out there, and yet you have the titles on the same people. Okay, and I'm talking about the Universal title. You have Brock Lesnar as Universal Champion. Okay, and then you have Seth as the IC champ. Okay, Seth Rollins is a world title contender. So is Finn Balor. You could put Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre needs to be going for it. And now that they lost Braun, their second big guy, you know, because he's out due to surgery, they're going in a cluster. They don't know what to do.
Yeah. It is kind of one of those things where they really do need to start thinking about, hey, if this person gets hurt, who do we have as the backup? Because I think that when they rely too much solely on one person, all the stress and all the injuries are just bound to catch up with a lot of these stars, and then literally they get hurt in the worst way, and it's like, okay, well now what do we do?
Yeah, injuries are rough, and of course they always the injuries just get worse around Mania time.
Oh, do not remind me of WrestleMania 32. That was, oh boy.
Oh man, that was with Cesaro was injured. Rollins was injured.
Just about like everybody. Yeah, Cena got injured. That's right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. No, didn't Cena show up in the middle of the show?
He did, but he did like one AA to one of the Wyatt family members and one of the...
Yeah, with The Rock and all that stuff. I heard something weird today,
okay.
By the way. So apparently there was the plan, like this was a legit plan for The Rock to win the Rumble and face Roman at Mania, but that was before, you know, poor Roman.
Right.
And there's still talks that it could happen. How do you feel about that?
You know, I think
that goes back into what you were saying about the part-timer situation, and I completely agree with you.
Well, one thing that I listened to a friend of mine's Rant with Ant, and one thing that Ant mentioned that I really agree with is you have to get rid of all the nostalgia. You don't always have to have nostalgia for everything. You don't have to have nostalgia for like the main matches. Start building up a lot of these younger guys. And for me, of course, people, you know, remember Rock versus Brock. It's only happened really one time, and that was at SummerSlam 02. And the thing is that people are going to be like, oh, it's the rematch we never got. It's like, so
it's
what?
The rematch we don't want.
It is. I don't
feel like watching The Rock get Germans suplexed and worrying about him dying, and then him come back, hit a rock bottom of people's elbow, and win the Universal title at WrestleMania.
It just serves as no purpose, and I am a huge mark for The Rock. I will definitely say that he's one of the most entertaining
I would love to see The Rock come back and wrestle like a match or two, but I don't want him to be incorporated in our Universal title. You know, this is the title that supposedly is catering to the WWE Universe, and yet, in my opinion, the title is cursed, and it's been cursed since day one. You know, you reveal it to everybody. Everybody hates the way it looks. Finn Balor gets injured, okay, and then and then Kevin Owens gets squashed by Goldberg. And then that's a part-timer who's losing it to another part-timer in Brock. And then as soon as Brock finally loses it to Roman, you know, he has leukemia, and that's such a sad situation.
Yeah.
And then we get Brock with the title again, and then Braun Strowman blows both his knees.
Yeah, honestly, I would just be totally okay if somebody were to actually just... I think I remember... What was it? There was a time where I think JBL was WWE champion, and he had Orlando win the US title.
God.
Yeah, wrestling god. And he blew up the spinner belt that John Cena had for the US title. I kind of want a recreation of that, but with the Universal title at this point. And
just get the spinner back.
Oh gosh, that's what.
Just let Cena break the record and have him bring the spinner back.
Oh,
I was okay with the title. I thought the title looked gnarly. I mean, and towards the end it didn't spin, but I still thought it looked pretty dope. Gosh,
now I'm just imagining a red Fruit Loop Universal Championship belt that has a center spinner belt. That honestly could be...
Yeah!
That could be a match made of nightmares. Oh my god. That thing is already cursed as is. It'll be more cursed if we have a spinner to it.
Oh man.
But
I can't even imagine.
I honestly would prefer them just, destroying the Universal title, bringing back the World Heavyweight Championship. That was a title that I loved.
The big gold belt.
Oh, that was a beauty.
And give it to Triple H.
Oh, fucking hell. They just do that all over again and be like, oh, great, well, who's going to be him? Like, first night, he defends it, loses it to somebody maybe like AJ Styles or Seth Rollins in like 12 seconds and be like, huh, well, I guess it was just for the sake of nostalgia. But hey, we get Seth Rollins as world champion. We get this person as world champion. Hey! It's like,
that's what I want. I want Rollins as champ. Or Balor. Give Balor a chance, because Balor's been doing nothing. I mean, he's been in a rivalry with Corbin, Lashley, and they're all just, you're too short.
it literally boils down to that. It's just, I'm big, you're small, fee fi fo fum. Just makes absolutely no sense.
I wonder who's writing all that dialogue, and why is it Vince McMahon?
Oh gosh, I don't even want to know. But we talk a lot about ruining stuff. Honestly, it does transition into
Nia Jax.
Well, I was actually going towards Asuka, but Nia Jax as well. What the hell are they doing with her? Ever since...
No, I'm not. Look, I don't hate Nia Jax. I think that it was a mistake, and I do feel like that she does need some more work just because of all the other injuries that have happened. But that's not for me to critique. I'm a fan, not a trained professional here. It just sucks because Becky Lynch is the hottest thing in wrestling right now, and I never thought I'd say that.
It was just going to be a matter of time, I think, in my opinion, for her
exactly.
to...
And I never thought it would be like this, because Becky's always had that let's go get it attitude, and now she's the man, and everybody believes that she's the man, and it's so great. Like, I throughout the women's history in the WWE, I have never felt this way while, like, watching a women's wrestler compete or listening to her talk. She is the Becky Lynch of Becky Lynch. She's not the next Stone Cold, she's the first Becky Lynch.
That is probably the best way to put it. I think a lot of people need to stop comparing so many people to other
wrestlers in the past.
Yeah, and
that's okay. It was cool when they compared like Dolph and Shawn, but that's a very easy comparison, especially with how Dolph was transitioned.
Certainly, it's just very interesting to see how Becky Lynch kind of metamorphosized, and it all happened in a matter of months from her turn.
And everybody hated it at first. Do you remember that? Becky turned heel on Charlotte. Everybody went crazy at the arena, but everybody at home was like tweeting and doing their internet thumb thing, and they're just like, I hate Becky Lynch as a heel. Why would they do this? And now look at it. She's the top draw, and she's technically an anti-hero at this point.
She really is. She's kind of like the Venom to Spider-Man at this point. Although Spider-Man was not as, blown up in our face as much as Charlotte probably has been. That's just me.
Okay. I've always liked Charlotte, and yeah, she has had those moments, but her versus Ronda Rousey, I don't know what to say.
I will say that it is definitely one of those situations that I watched it and I'm just literally like, wow, this is different than what I was expecting, and I think that just everything that happened afterwards kind of watered that moment down a bit. Like, I would have expected, Ronda to maybe have like a little neck brace or something like that, or just selling those kind of injuries. But
oh yeah, she didn't sell them at all. But it's like that match, even if that attack didn't happen at the end and Charlotte lost clean, that still is like a match of the year candidate. That match was fantastic, especially with how little time they both had to do that. And the fact, and I hate dissing wrestling fans because, it's not right. But the fact that the SummerSlam crowd was just booing the Survivor Series, my bad. The Survivor Series crowd was booing the entire time for Ronda at the end was why? It's like she doesn't need to be here. She's choosing to be here and entertain you guys. And you guys are just, we're sick of Ronda, even though she's probably the best on Raw right now.
She really is. I just really don't understand why they're really hating Ronda. I was honestly expecting Ronda to be worse than what she is, but she has definitely really come out as her own, and that all started at WrestleMania this year.
Oh yeah, ever since day one, ever since that match with Angle, ever since WrestleMania 31 when she did that thing with The Rock, she was a star for the WWE, and they wanted her, and they got her, and she is producing big numbers for them, like they wanted.
Definitely. But no, what I was trying to say before with Asuka was the fact that after she had that big loss at WrestleMania with the undefeated streak, it hasn't really worked well for her. But now, we're seeing a bit of a change where people are seeing that, hey, we're finally getting to see Asuka do something. She's finally getting a bit of a mini push, I guess you could say. It all goes down at TLC where she's going to be fighting off against Charlotte and Becky Lynch in a tables, ladders, and chairs match, which a lot of people have been saying, and I will agree with this. That should be the main event. That's the match that just definitely has some of the best build-up, as well as it could have a great pinnacle moment for, honestly, you could probably crown Asuka as the new women's champion, so that way we can have Becky go to the Rumble, win it, and then challenge Ronda at WrestleMania. That's just how I would fantasy book that. But honestly,
that is exactly what I was going to say. I was going to talk about how Asuka should win the title, Becky should win the Rumble, and challenge Ronda at WrestleMania, and then we can get Charlotte versus Asuka in the rematch.
I think that would be really beneficial to the title as well as to Asuka to really get that second comeuppance and be able to basically hit the reset button where it's like, you know what, this was a rough year for me. I'm starting off fresh. I'm the champion. And maybe she does her own version of like an open challenge where she takes on everybody on the SmackDown roster. And we're getting closer and closer to WrestleMania, which means about a day or two after we'll have the shakeup. So there's going to be plenty of talent that's going to be, you know, coming around. So we definitely can expect that. But we'll have to wait and see. Honestly, they could go in definitely a darker direction in which they have, you know, Charlotte win the title and break Trisha's record of 7 women's title reigns, which I think is going to happen.
Oh yeah, it's going to happen. There's no way it's not. But who knows?
But so far she's tied, so it's one of those things where it's like fingers crossed. We'll see what happens at this point.
I mean, so we're talking about Asuka, and so she won the Women's Royal Rumble match, the first ever, and the whole Royal Rumble pay-per-view. The Rumble matches were good, in my opinion. I like that Shinsuke won, and I love that Asuka won. But in the end, they were both useless.
You know,
because Asuka went to Mania, had a fantastic match against Charlotte, lost. Okay?
Yep.
Shinsuke went to Mania, fought AJ, lost. Turned heel, lost. Low blow, lost. And then Asuka never even, got another shot at the title.
Yeah, until
she got it when Carmella had it.
Oh, God.
But, Carmella is money, so...
golly. Yeah, we definitely talk about, some of the best events of the year. Royal Rumble definitely was one of the better shows to start off as. I think a lot of people will definitely talk about Wrestle Kingdom 12, I believe it was.
Yep, with Omega and Jericho. Oh man, that whole show. Let's see. It's very early in the morning. So, Omega and Jericho was a fantastic match. You also had Okada versus Tetsuya Naito. And then the Will Ospreay versus Marty Scurll versus Takahashi versus...
There's Marty Scurll and Kushida.
Yeah, Kushida. Yep, that was definitely one of the matches of the night. And then we also saw the Young Bucks win the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships, and New Japan goes all out on Wrestle Kingdom, and I loved every match of that show. That was worth $9.99. No houses, no horrors.
Oh gosh. Yeah, for Wrestle Kingdom 12 to definitely start off that year, and then to have the Rumble kind of have, as you mentioned, two very well established stars in Asuka.
Professional wrestling was on fire at the beginning of the year.
Yes, and honestly, just seeing those two, Shinsuke Nakamura and Asuka, winning the Royal Rumble was a great moment. They were really good.
Oh yeah.
And immediately after Shinsuke won, he said that, hey, I'm challenging AJ Styles. And then after Asuka won, we had that great face-off where we had, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte and Asuka in the ring where we were basically having it up in the air. It's like, well, who are they challenging? Then, of course, we had the debut of Ronda Rousey, which definitely was one of those moments that stole the night. So people definitely would make the case like, well, she stole Asuka's moment. It's like, Asuka's not going to lose that moment. Are you kidding me? It was the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. There's no way.
And that Women's Royal Rumble took me by surprise. I thought that it was going to be sloppy, and it was so good. They did such a fantastic job. the women's wrestling. Oh my goodness! Going back to 2010 and watching that, it's unbearable. And now we are in a prime time of women's wrestling, and I love it. I love it.
It is absolutely amazing how far the women have come, and we'll definitely talk about how far they've come, especially when we talk about Evolution. But I'm trying to take this month by month. I think another really good show, in my opinion, was I would definitely throw Elimination Chamber in there. But again, it was because of the fact that it did have a history-making match with the women's Elimination Chamber. Yep. That's exactly.
Yeah, I feel like that was the best match of the whole thing. The men's elimination chamber match. I wasn't a fan of Braun eliminating everybody and then losing to Roman. I wasn't a fan of that. Still, I'm not.
It was a weird kind of a deal, but I understood why they did. They had to make Braun look really monstrous, but I like the storytelling there because of the fact that Braun has had Roman's number since probably almost day one, I would even say, because he actually debuted with the Wyatts, and then when he broke out,
did the Shield with Jericho and Roman and all that.
Yeah, we're not going to really talk too much about that, but
we try to forget about Braun and the Wyatts.
But yeah, ever since Braun went out on his own, the first real major star that really he went after was indeed Roman. Roman gave Braun his first loss, but that didn't affect Braun at all because a couple months later he wrecks Roman. And then he took him out in an ambulance match. They continued really making Roman look a bit weak against Braun.
Yeah,
but I think that was
love that rivalry. That was wow.
It was beautiful. But yeah, basically, I understood the storyline perspective why they did that, because the fact was that they really wanted to get Roman over, get him ready to fight off against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, which, perfect transition. We'll talk about WrestleMania. Honestly, other than a couple matches, it was a better show than I really gave credit for. Pre-show, we had,
I agree. The WrestleMania was, you had Cedric Alexander versus Mustafa Ali, which was a great match. Balor, Rollins, Miz. You got Rousey and Angle against Triple H and Stephanie, which was probably match of the night. I didn't expect that. Charlotte versus Asuka, which stole the show as well, and AJ and Shinsuke, they put on a good match. It was a good WrestleMania. We got to see The Undertaker. We got to see everything that WrestleMania is.
I legit was not expecting Undertaker to show up and beat Cena in a matter of 3 minutes or something like that. It was a short matchup.
Yeah, I was so shocked too. There was part of me that was like, okay, Taker's coming out, and then they ruined it with Elias, and then Taker comes out, and then Cena gets squashed, and it's like, whoa, when did this start happening?
It was just one of those things where you just watch it, and then after it happens, that was the match. Wow, but okay.
And then after Mania was Extreme Rules, correct?
No, that's where we started to get in the downward spiral.
Or was it Backlash?
Yeah, that was Backlash, where it's like, hey, okay. we had Rollins versus Miz, great. After that,
which was a great match.
After that, it was a dumpster fire.
I thought Nakamura versus AJ Styles was a decent match, besides the stupid ending.
Yeah, I think that they could have done the same thing with I'm talking back to WrestleMania, was with Roman and Brock. It was just the way that it ended, and just certain points of the match where it just hurt.
I forgot about that match.
I think for good reason, but
you don't kick out of that many F5s and then just get pinned off of another one. If you kick out of 5 F5s, you should win the match. There's no way that it shouldn't have happened like that. That was uncomfortable to watch. Not because it was brutal, not Daniel Bryan versus Lesnar uncomfortable, but this was just like, oh, come on. It's like, are we really gonna see this again? And then Brock won, and I was like, are you serious? I was so angry.
It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You're trying to keep it as a really good night, but then have it end like that. It's like, wow, you really have no faith in Roman if you're not going to have him win.
Yeah. I feel bad for Roman. He's had his WrestleMania moment, but he hasn't, if you know what I mean. He hasn't had his John Cena WrestleMania moment. He won the world title from Triple H, but the crowd, he faced Brock at WrestleMania 31. That was a good match, and then Rollins won the title, and then I said he won the world title from Triple H, and the crowd just booed. And then we have him and Taker, and nobody beats Taker at Mania, and they did that and booed, and then he lost to Lesnar. I feel like when and if Roman comes back, he's gonna have his WrestleMania moment, and because the crowd is it's gonna be one of the biggest pops of all time, and I never thought I'd say that. That is crazy coming out of my mouth.
No, I definitely do agree with you on that. Another really good show that happened in July was not really even a WWE show. It was an Impact show. It was Impact's Slammiversary. From top.
Slammiversary. I heard all about that everywhere, and then I instantly watched it, and holy cow, Impact really stepped their game up.
Yeah, they were really trying to find their groove, and that was always the one thing that I think they just needed to really get back in the groove of just focusing on the wrestlers, not focusing on nostalgia. This is a perfect example of them doing that. They had everything from top to bottom was just absolutely great, from a 4-way matchup to a House of Hardcore Rules match. The title matches were really great. I think that the match of the night for a lot of people was the mask versus hair match between Sami Callihan and Pentagon Jr., which, my God, I just absolutely loved that matchup. And I think that other than the ending, it was the perfect matchup between these two guys. They just...
Oh, yeah, and I couldn't have physically seen more package pile drivers.
Oh, my God. Just...
And another match that was... it was criticized, but I felt like it was a very brutal match. The LAX versus OGs.
Oh, yeah, the 51-50 street fight.
Oh, yeah, very fantastic. I mean, I thought that they went out there and they did their job, especially with Hernandez and Homicide. They're not a young gun anymore. They're getting up there, and they did so good. And then you had Brian Cage and Matt Sydal. Overall, the show was good and good for Impact. You know what I mean? They're trying.
Yeah, they finally got their stride. They're finally getting people looking and thinking, oh, wow, we got something else to watch now. We got something else that we can enjoy other than WWE. That's always really good to hear from people. So another event that I personally got the chance to watch live and in person was still a really good night, and that was the Money in the Bank event this year. Both the matches for Money in the Bank were really good. I understood why they went with the Alexa Bliss for the women's. It was just one of those things that I think created a shock, because I think a lot of people were thinking, oh, it's going to be Becky or it's going to be Charlotte. It's going to be this person. But they went with Alexa Bliss, and it's like, oh, wow, they really just shocked us a bit. And then you had Braun with the men's, which was such a waste of a briefcase, only because of how it got, cashed in.
Oh, my gosh. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, didn't Braun win Money in the Bank? Why is he... Wait, what happened? And then I had to think about it, and it's like, oh, that... The Money in the Bank match for the men's was pretty good. I mean, Kevin Owens getting thrown off that huge ladder through that table from Braun was insane. Kevin Owens, I have nothing but props for what Kevin Owens did in his rivalry with Braun Strowman. He is devoted.
Can we just say that Kevin Owens is probably like the stuntman of the year for 2018?
I love it. I've always loved Kevin Owens. I like Kevin Owens when he was in ROH as Kevin Steen. He's one of the best talkers on the mic. He can go in the ring. I mean, if you watch his match with Rollins on Raw for the IC title, it's a match of the year contender. Honestly, it was so good. And he just, with him coming back as a babyface possibly, it's going to be interesting to see how he pulls it off. I know he can, but it's just going to be interesting to see how WWE pulls it off as well.
No, I fully agree with that. Also during this event, we got to see a really good matchup, probably my favorite matchup between Nakamura and Styles, other than the Wrestle Kingdom matchup.
Oh yeah, that was definitely the best match of their rivalry. You had the low blow from AJ, and then the phenomenal forearm through the table, and it was just a feel-good moment.
It was just absolutely wonderful. Yeah, and for a lot of people, they got to witness nostalgia again with the return of James Ellsworth. coming in during the Carmella versus Asuka matchup, I literally was like, oh god, no, just no. As soon as Carmella won that, I literally almost stormed off the arena, but I had one of my friends just pull me back, just like, dude, it's okay, you're fine. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna take a minute and just go.
James Ellsworth is one of, if not the most useless things to ever come on WWE television.
Uh-huh.
He was a jobber, and then he gets like a big break for no reason. He beats AJ Styles. You don't just beat AJ Styles. That's not something you come in and just do. I don't care if Dean Ambrose is the referee or not. James Ellsworth is a very different topic at this moment than what he was back then.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to put it. Just, gosh.
Anyway,
moving on.
Extreme Rules?
Extreme Rules had some pretty good moments, I will say that.
Styles versus Rusev, the match started off slow, but it picked up very fast.
Yeah, that was honestly really good. I was very surprised, again, how well they did. But then again, I shouldn't be surprised. It's AJ Styles, and you got Rusev.
He put stuff in.
Rusev.
So I made a list today. Best WWE matches of 2018, and I went in order of every single pay-per-view. And AJ Styles is on here so many times. It's insane.
Well, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but I also understand what you're saying. It's just one of those things where so many people definitely will say, like, oh, AJ Styles, he had a lukewarm, title run. It's like, did he really? Other than the whole Nakamura deal where some of the matches were very lukewarm, you look at some of the other matches that happened on there. His matches with, Rusev and Samoa Joe, and with, I would even say, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. He had that Six-Packs challenge at
Fastlane with Cena, Ziggler, Corbin, Owens, and Zayn.
Yeah.
And his match with Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series, though it wasn't for his title. And then he had that match against Owens and Zayn at the Rumble. The dude's the workhorse of the WWE. I don't know if you watched his 365 on the network.
For that.
Oh my goodness. Oh, he there's no one like him. You know what I mean?
There really isn't. No, trust me.
And it's like you have your Kenny Omega in New Japan, and you have, your Jay Lethal in Ring of Honor, but no company has an AJ Styles. No company has, AJ was working so many of his matches with a torn hamstring. Come on, that's dedication to the business. Nobody can do what AJ does, and he proves it. Nobody is as good as him in the ring and on SmackDown because nobody shows it.
Yeah.
He goes out there weekly and just puts on performance after performance after performance, and all these other guys that are just sitting back aren't doing it as well. I want Shelton Benjamin to get a push.
He deserves it. He really does. He's one of those guys that I still see to this day as a very gifted talent, and they're not doing anything with him, which is shocking to me.
Oh yeah, it was a big deal when they brought him back too, but
yeah, I don't know. But then we go on to probably the pinnacle of where things slowly started to change for WWE, and that was indeed SummerSlam.
Big Four.
Yep, one of the Big Four, and they put on a fantastic show there where they had, the triple threat for the SmackDown Women's title. We had Ronda winning the Raw Women's title for the first time. We had the big rematch between Brock and Roman. We had that great matchup. Even if the finish was not what people wanted, it was still a great matchup. It's still a great way to showcase the match between Samoa Joe and AJ Styles.
I liked it. I liked that they incorporated AJ's family, like his actual family. I think that the way that they're going with Joe's character from SummerSlam and before that is fantastic.
And there's a lot of people that are saying, like, well, he lost to AJ Styles so many times, there's no way he's going to be WWE champion now. But it's like, I don't agree with that. I think that his time is just not right now. He's definitely going to be a WWE champion. I could see that. I just don't think it's right now. Because there were so many times when, even back in the day when we were saying, like, oh, this would be a good time for, to put the belt on Shawn Michaels. This would be a great time to put the belt on Stone Cold Steve Austin. And you had to go through that frustration before finally when that ultimate payoff happened. And it's like, oh, well, I understand now. And it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, we're having Styles win, but it's to have a great historic, title run. And to me, it made absolute sense to have him do it. I would have loved him to break, CM Punk's WWE's title streak, but we got that whole deal with Daniel Bryan, which created shock value, and was one of those things where it's like, okay, this is the direction they're going. I'm interested in see where it's going. Had some bumps in the road, but what are you going to do?
The Samoa Joe is there's no way that he's lost any momentum. They could easily fix it. Have him completely decimate Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy's willing to take the beating. Let Joe give the beating. Let Joe just throw him around, toss him around. I don't care if it's a squash match. I love Jeff Hardy. I'm not against Jeff Hardy, but hey, it's Samoa Joe. He needs it more. And then go have him smack Nakamura and get the U.S. title, defend the U.S. title over and over and over again, and then have him lose, and then transition back into the WWE title picture and let him win this time. It's a process that's not that hard to do in an amount of time that they have. They have time. They like big men.
They do. I will agree with that. Yeah, like I said, SummerSlam was definitely another one of those shows that definitely stood out. Miz versus Bryan, yep. Gosh, I'm trying to remember some of the other matches that happened on there. That squash between Owens and Braun, which I think a lot of people knew what was going to happen regardless.
Yeah, it was. That was definitely it was a sad day for Kevin Owens. He didn't deserve that.
He really did. But honestly, it was ultimately the payoff, in my opinion, was the final matchup. Even though so many people were probably thinking, "Oh, great, it was going to happen anyway." It's like, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad that we got Roman to beat Brock Lesnar finally, because now.
Yeah, same. I was excited. It's been so long since we've seen the title off of Lesnar, and it's like we finally get it. Be happy, please.
And even with those few months, Roman definitely made that title more prestigious than when Brock was champion the entire time. I'm sorry, but even people say like, "Oh, but he put on a really good match." It's like, you have to remember that that's half Brock, but the other half is because of who he worked with. Roman has been working his butt off, and I would dare say like he was probably 75% of that matchup, and he was still giving it his all, even with his title defenses. Just, I get it, but at the same time, it's just like, no more Brock being the champion right now. He's a nostalgia feel kind of guy. We don't always need that.
No, it's getting old at this point. Like, come on, like it's cool. It was cool for a while, but now it's like, what are we doing? And there's another thing I want to talk about. While we were on Extreme Rules, like the show back.
Okay.
My opinion, one of the worst crowds of the year, if not the worst. The main event, we finally get a main event without Roman. We got Rollins versus Ziggler for the IC title in an Iron Man match. And the crowd doing the whole buzzer thing was so annoying. I wanted to see those two tear it up and have such a fantastic match. But it's so hard to enjoy a wrestling match when the crowd is just toxic. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely do know what you mean. I'm gonna. Oh God, where was that in?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh of all places, where they booed Roman for winning the Rumble, and they cheered him when he won the title later on that year. And they're doing that. What the hell?
They're just not happy people.
Apparently not. Jeez Louise. I definitely do agree. There were a lot of moments where I was very disappointed in the crowd. It's like, what are you guys doing? I get you're trying to hijack the show, but we're finally getting something that we want, and that's, not Roman in the main event. He didn't win that night. He lost against Lashley, and we're getting Rollins versus Ziggler, who are going to put on a wrestling clinic in the Iron Man match.
And Lashley versus Reigns was a pretty good match. I'll give them both that. It picked up very fast.
It definitely was one of those matches I was not expecting the outcome, and I was, again, not expecting it to be as good as it was. And it was great. Loved it. But, let's see, next matchup here. Oh, gosh. I can't talk about, great match events of the year unless I talk about All In. From top to bottom.
Oh, man.
From top to bottom, it was just absolutely great. I talked about this when I had my interview with SoCal Val, and one of the things I mentioned was that, Kenny Omega versus Pentagon. I was not expecting that matchup to even happen. It was like the dream match I never knew I wanted until it happened, and I'm like, yes, this was everything I wanted, and then some. I'm okay with this.
Oh yeah, All In was monumental, and I can't say that enough. All In has one of the greatest stories I've witnessed as a wrestling fan. You have Cody Rhodes, who puts this show together because Dave Meltzer says you can't sell out a 20,000 seat stadium or arena, and he does it in a record-breaking time, so fast. And then he is getting an NWA World Championship match against Nick Aldis, okay? And that is the NWA Championship that his father held. Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, before he was in WWE, when he was the man, when he was like a legit contender. And then Cody going to All In and winning the title, it doesn't get better than that.
No, definitely, I agree with that. Honestly,
it's emotional.
It was. It really was a fantastic matchup at the moment where Cody Rhodes does the, I guess you should call it like the British Bulldog take, where Aldis does the sunset flip and Cody does basically the sit down deal where he pins Aldis and wins the title. Was a fantastic moment. It was one of those things that a lot of people were probably not expecting. I think they were expecting Aldis.
It wasn't unpredictable. I didn't expect that to be the ending at all.
It was still just an absolutely amazing and wonderful moment to see Cody Rhodes hold that title. Like you said, it was won by his father, and now it's got more prestige again. It might as well just be called the NWA Rhodes Heavyweight Championship at this point.
You're not wrong, my friend. You're not wrong at all. I love Cody Rhodes. I think that what he's doing for professional wrestling outside of WWE is great. He's trying. He's trying to get a company that can compete with the WWE. He's trying to make a company that fans can enjoy every week, and that's insane. And he has other competition other than the WWE. He has the NXT, man. NXT is insane. It is my favorite wrestling company to watch right now. And I mean, it's part of the WWE, but, kayfabe.
Right. But I will say this, again, there were so many other great matches on there. We had Skrull versus Okada, which, honestly, I was not expecting it to be as good as it was. Holy crap.
That was a sleeper match. It was 26 minutes. They went all out. They went crazy. I didn't even know Marty Scurll knew half the moves he did in that match. He did so many new moves out of his arsenal. It was like, damn.
We had Hangman Page versus Joey Janela in that no disqualification matchup, which was absolutely
fantastic. When Hangman killed Joey Janela?
Oh my gosh, just holy crap. That was legitimately one of those matches where it's like, I think we may have just witnessed homicide at a wrestling event. But
it's nuts.
It was insane. And I'll even show this one as a undercard deal that definitely still gets probably forgotten, was the four-way match between Madison Rayne, Britt Baker, Chelsea Green, and Tessa Blanchard. They could have picked so many different women to compete in that matchup, but those four women were selected for a reason, and that reason...
Oh yeah, after watching that match, I wouldn't want anybody else. Every woman in that match had their own part, and they did good. And props.
It definitely is one of those things where it's like, wow, this is legitimately one of those matches that's going to be hard to top. How is WWE going to top that? Trust me, we're getting to that. You mentioned NXT. I'm just going to say this right now because I can't just pick one. Every single NXT TakeOver event is memorable. From January...
I made a tweet about that. I just made a tweet about that before we even started this podcast. I was talking about how I was looking at every single takeover, and not a single takeover didn't have a match of the year candidate. Every single takeover, it's better than the last, and I don't know how they do it. It doesn't make sense. You go from watching Raw and SmackDown, and then you go to NXT, which is owned by the same company, and it's 50 times better. It's not 2, it's 50. You got Triple H. Triple H, I love him. He's the man. He needs to keep doing what he's doing. He needs to keep building up NXT, because everyone in NXT is a star.
Yeah, definitely. Just every single matchup, like you said, is match of the year candidate. There's some hiccups here and there. Lars Sullivan, Aleister Black. Oh God, that was the one matchup where I was just like,
Black Bass. Yeah.
That botch was just so hard. It's one of those things where it's like, I see everybody on the Lars Sullivan bandwagon.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't care.
He's ready to come up to Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah, well, whichever one it is, we'll see what happens. I will argue that one of the best shows that WWE produced and created this year was the Hell in the Cell event this past year. It was really good from top to bottom. Again,
Becky versus Charlotte, Styles versus Joe. It just keeps going.
It does great. Even the matchup with Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, you were not expecting it to be as good as it was. And it didn't even have to boil down to the wrestling. It had to boil to the storyline perspective, as well as the brutality that they made into it. I think there was a point where Jeff was doing the belt strap deal where he's just whacking away on Randy Orton, and you see Randy Orton's back just bleeding from the brutality.
Yeah, we know. Okay, so deep hardcore wrestling fans, we know Randy Orton. We know how we've heard things, right?
Uh-huh.
I never would have expected him to take that beating. When I watched that, I was like, props. Damn. Like, it's been so long since we've seen energy out of Randy Orton, since we've seen him, like, show any signs of caring. And with this new character of his where he's just so, like, sadistic, it's so nice to see Randy Orton care again. You know what I mean?
No, definitely.
Does it make sense?
No, I definitely do agree with that. I know what you're saying. Just to see him, care about his work, care about, what he's doing in the ring. Because there are plenty of times where you see him just kind of like doing the jokingly, smiling and just acting like a goof or something like that. The RKO he did to Mark Henry, and then he did like a jumping split.
Oh my God. One of my favorite RKOs.
But no, I get what you're saying. The fact that, he gave so much into that matchup, and he really showed how much brutality that he was being delivered by Jeff Hardy. And again, Jeff Hardy putting on one hell of a deal. And God, that final moment where Jeff Hardy does he's trying to do like the splash, and it looks like he hit his head on the ground. I was legit like, oh my God, Jeff may have just killed himself.
That's how I felt. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'll talk about that later.
Right. But now we can finally talk about it, guys. One of the best events of this year definitely has to be, hands down, WWE Evolution. The first all-women's pay-per-view in which we see so many great matches, so many great stories. Everything that went down in this event definitely was worth watching. You had incorporated, NXT, you incorporated the Mae Young Classic, championship matches, you had a Battle Royal. They had a red carpet deal before the event even started, and it made it that much more prestigious. It made it feel like a bigger deal. It felt like a movie premiere, and it delivered like a house of fire. Just absolutely fantastic.
In my opinion, Evolution was the best main roster show they did this year, besides another show we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Oh boy, I think I might know what you're talking about, but we'll see. But yeah, go ahead. I didn't know what to say after I watched all that. I was astonished by Trish Stratus and Lita and everything they did. Yeah, there was a couple missteps, and you had Mickie James and Alicia Fox. I wish that Alexa Bliss would have been a part of that, because I went to a Comic-Con event the weekend before, and I met Alexa Bliss, and she was just talking about how awesome it would have been to, face her idol Trish, and then to not see her do it, that sucked. And then, oh man, it was just the whole show just blew me away. The Mae Young Classic finals with Toni Storm and Io Shirai, they stole the show. They really did. And then you had Becky Lynch and Charlotte, and they did their thing. I expected that match to be, okay, that was a good match. No, that match was fantastic. Yeah.
It was brutal.
Oh my god. I was not expecting Charlotte versus Becky to be as good as it was. I mean, their match at Hell in a Cell was great. They stepped it up like 3 notches, if not 5 notches, when they reached WWE Evolution, because they knew it had to be a can't-miss, unforgettable matchup.
Exactly, they knew it had to be.
Oh my god.
And I even thought Ronda Rousey versus Nikki Bella was good.
It was, and there's some people that will criticize it because maybe they don't feel that fortunate like Nikki Bella was, worth putting in the matchup. I thought that she held her own against them.
She held her own.
I think that you said it best. She definitely stepped it up, and she definitely created a memorable moment with Ronda Rousey, and just really created for a memorable matchup with Ronda Rousey. So, is it a match that you're a candidate? Well, not exactly, but it's definitely one of those matches that definitely will indeed just stand out this year.
It'll be remembered when Nikki Bella returns. Let's just say that.
Yes, I definitely do agree with that. Another event that we can definitely hit is Impact's Bound for Glory was another really good show. Again, it's showing that Impact is going in the right direction, but it also had a little bit of controversy to end it. We'll definitely get into that. We had, Tessa Blanchard versus Taya Valkyrie. We had Ohio versus Everything taking on Brian Cage, Phoenix, and Pentagon Jr. in that OVE rules match. We had a no DQ matchup with Eddie Edwards and Dreamer versus Moose and Killer Cross, who Killer Cross, oh my god, he just absolutely is just coming out of his own here, not only in Impact, but also in Lucha Underground. The main event with Johnny Impact versus Austin Aries. Pretty good matchup between these two. And then we had...
Should we talk about
it? The ending? Yeah, we might as well. We're talking about it, so basically... Okay. Yeah, so basically what happened was, as soon as the matchup ended, Johnny Impact, I almost called him Johnny Mundo. I'm sorry, I'm a Lucha Underground mark. What can I say?
Yeah, so it was John Morrison.
Johnny Impact does not stick. I'm sorry, but
no, I don't like it. I mean, I love him. I just don't like the name.
Right,
but it makes sense.
But yeah, so Johnny Impact, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Morrison, whatever we want to call him, he wins the world title, and moments after that, Austin Aries just got up, and he basically no-sold the finish. He basically yelled at Don Callis after the matchup was over. Then he went up to the ramp, and he's just flipping everybody off. And a lot of people thought it was maybe like a work shoot, but it was.
I'm one of those people.
But it's one of those things where it has been confirmed that was the night that Austin Aries' contract expired with the company, and I guess he legitimately left the company in angry fashion. I don't understand why, because Impact definitely treated him very well. He had a really good set of matches all throughout his run with the company. I don't see any reason why he should leave in a huff, why he should be leaving, all pissed off. But I guess he maybe...
So what happened leading up to that was the whole Twitter fiasco they had.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew about that. The whole Austin Aries talking about Johnny Impact's wife and stuff like that, and then they legit had beef on Twitter. I honestly, it looked like everything was a work, and Austin Aries is a great talent. He is. But at this point in his career, after he left the WWE, it feels like he just needs a championship all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Because he lost the world title, and then his contract expired and he left. And he never got the Cruiserweight title in the WWE, and then when he was done doing that, he left. It's like signs. I mean, he's probably getting towards, like, his final years, like, years, and he just wants to hold titles, but it's like, it's not that important right now, man.
It really isn't. I remember that there was a time where he had, 4 or 5 championship belts around him, and it's just like, dude, you have all these great, you have these belts around you, and it seems like you're still not happy.
WWE isn't even that stupid. Serious.
No,
They could have. They could have put every single title on Roman, including the women's, and have brought back the Divas. It could have happened.
But no, yeah. To your credit, they definitely were not going to do that because that would have just been absolutely a disaster. But yeah, like I said, Bound for Glory was definitely one of those shows I enjoyed. It was a good show. I mean, it was probably second only to the Slammiversary show that they did earlier on in the year. But what are you going to do? So I'll conclude my list with this event because this was one of those events that I definitely was very nostalgic for, but it delivered on so many different levels. And that was indeed Ultima Lucha Cuatro. Holy crap. The matches...
Lucha Underground goes out always.
They just know exactly how to make their fans just completely happy. Although the final conclusion of the main event was probably the one time where everybody was just like, okay, now we're pissed. We're not pleased with this. But everything else, you had the match between the Mac and Mil Muertes in a death match. Holy crap, was that brutal. And the finishing moment where we see Mac take a block and he just bashes it over Mil Muertes' head, I was just like, oh my god, that was pretty brutal. And I thought that there was almost like a piece of skin that came off of Mil's head, and I'm just like, oh my god, they're really showing this. This is just as brutal as, what was it, Killshot versus Dante Fox from last year, where literally it was just like, oh god, there's a piece of skin right there on the stretcher. I'm like...
Yeah, they literally look like they were killing each other. But no, here's my thing with Lucha Underground. I love it. I don't get why it's so unnoticed. I stand by this. When I watch Lucha Underground, my jaw is dropped the entire time. The sound of the kicks, the moves they do, the way they take the moves, the crowd. It's one of those promotions where it's like, why aren't more people paying attention to this? This is crazy. This is insane wrestling, and it's not even like it's enough hardcore. It's enough. It's not too much, it's not too little, it's enough.
No, I definitely do agree with you there. Just absolutely everything that goes into this, it's very calculated, it's very well thought out of, and it might be due to the fact that they at least have time to say, okay, we're recording this, we're going to be setting this out, and if there's like an injury or something like that, hey, we have something that can basically, take that out. Ultima Lucha Cuatro was definitely the culmination of so much of what they did this year, and I'm hoping that we get to see, Ultima Lucha Cinco, because there's so much answers that have been unanswered. And that being, of course, we have, Stu Bennett making his debut at the end of the show. Dario Cueto has come back to life. There's so much there that needs to be answered, and I'm hoping that we get that answered in the 5th season. If the 5th season is the final season, I will be okay with this, because I think that 5 seasons is definitely the best way to go out, and that would mean go absolutely crazy with everything that you do. But that, like I said, that is just
I don't know. I feel like Lucha Underground, the story should end. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I want to see more. I want to see more wrestling in that style. Like, I don't want that to end. I want to see more of that.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. So, let me ask you this, Zach. I know you mentioned that, I think you had what was maybe probably like your favorite event or best event. Well, what event were you referring to exactly?
One of my favorite events of the year,
yep.
And it just recently happened, was Survivor Series.
All right.
I thought Survivor Series was a great show. I'm not saying it's like my number one of the year, but I thought that Buddy Murphy versus Mustafa Ali, being one of the best matches on a Big 4 pay-per-view, and the crowd going insane for the 205 Live guys, well, props. Look at what that show was. Nobody wanted to watch 205 Live. And now, everybody loves it, and it's great to see that. And then you had Charlotte versus Ronda, and whoa. And then we have Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan. And this match, I have never felt so uncomfortable watching a match from in the beginning of a match. I thought Daniel Bryan was legit hurt. the way he was selling everything and the way he took everything made me cringe, and I was like really scared. And then when he hit the low blow, I was like, damn, he got me.
Apparently Daniel Bryan's got a couple of, cells left in him. Not only that, but he definitely knows how to fool the crowd into thinking, oh, no, my neck.
Daniel Bryan has a few years left. I think he does.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm not too high on the Survivor Series, mainly because of the fact that, it was basically just a Raw, shutout. But to your credit, there were some really good matches involved in it. The match between...
Story-wise, Survivor Series is not good. Raw, clean sweeping SmackDown does nothing for SmackDown, especially with them going to Fox next year.
Definitely. One of the things that I will say that was really good was indeed some of the matches. The match between Rollins and Nakamura was really good. Loved it. You mentioned Bryan versus Brock, Ronda versus Charlotte. The men's Survivor Series match was okay.
Yeah.
I think the women's match, Survivor Series matchup was... I think that there were some points where it was pretty decent. There were some points where I thought they did a pretty good job. But yeah, they also just disregarded the whole, Usos winning SmackDown a point for that title. It was like, oh no, that doesn't count. We're only counting the main show. It's like, so literally that match was for nothing. Yeah, pretty much. Wow.
No, as I said, my number one show of the year is TakeOver War Games.
Oh baby, was that good?
That's my number one.
That was a good show.
Oh yeah, Black versus Gargano, Dream versus Ciampa, the War Games match. Oh, there's so much. I couldn't keep up.
so much beauty. I think that was probably the best War Games matchup in years that that wrestling has created.
Oh yeah, it's not that hard to top War Games though. I mean, back in WCW, they tried. I'll give them that. It was just back then, it didn't seem like a good idea, and the fans weren't behind it. And now they're like, oh, nostalgia, yay.
That's kind of how we're at right now. It's like, nostalgia, yay.
Wait until WrestleMania 35, and we're going to get Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys versus the Hardys, and a tables, ladders, and crutcher match.
Oh my gosh. Jeez Louise. If that legit happens, I will probably just bury my head in the ground and hope that WrestleMania turns out better than that.
Yeah, and then for the main event of WrestleMania, we're going to get, for the WWE Universal Championship, Marty Jannetty versus Shawn Michaels.
The rematch that everybody has wanted, somewhat, not really.
And then Brock's going to cash in the Money in the Bank and destroy Shawn Michaels.
Oh my gosh, jeez. Well, that is going to just about wrap it up for this edition of The Game Changer. Zach, thank you so very much for joining. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and honestly, really good stuff that we mentioned throughout 2018. So many really good events, and I can't think of another great person I would, talk this stuff with than with a fellow wrestling fan. So thank you for coming on.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. Great show.
Yeah, definitely. So this is usually the part of the show where I do like the plugs and everything like that, but do you have anything that you have to want to plug? Social media accounts that people can find you?
Yeah, sure. You can go follow me on Twitter at ZachandKraken16 or just type in Heels Corner. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Heels Corner. I post on there kind of daily, not really, but I'm trying.
Fair enough. Of course, guys, you know where to find us on The Game Changer, whether it's on YouTube, iHeartRadio, or here on Spreaker.com, as well as on Twitter and on Facebook. You guys give us a like, give us a subscribe, follow us, and yeah, this is one of the few things that are going to be happening going into this month. There's a lot more happening. Definitely tune in. So for Zach, I've been Nate the Epic Great. Thank you for joining us, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. See ya!